You said all of them, correct?
Oh, yeah. Right now.
Good morning, Madam Mayor. It is 9:01 and we are live.
No, but I mean.
Yeah,
eventually
morning,
we
everybody.
changed
All of them.
They only had so many in.
There's a little background music.
Somebody's not muted. Yeah, I hear.
Sorry, the little feedback. There we are.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the April 27th pre-agenda meeting. Good to see you, everybody, after we were spending last night together. We have some weeks where we spend a lot of time together, and when we have a week that we don't have any meetings, I kind of miss everybody. So, we do this a little bit differently every time. Sometimes I try to keep open-ended. Do we want to does anybody have anything burning on their heart that they want to talk about?
Are we going to
And
do
that
roll
background
call?
music is, sure, why not? Let's have roll call.
Mayor Betty Resch,
Here.
Vice Mayor Christopher McVoy,
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga,
Present.
Commissioner Kimberly Stokes,
Here.
Commissioner Ronaldo Diaz.
Here.
Good morning. Okay. More people are coming. So,
And
does
the
anybody
city
have any-
manager is in as well.
She is?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Does anybody have any burning issue that they want to talk about that they want to, I see Sarah's hand up.
I had asked to have the name change put on the agenda for Ocean Breeze a couple weeks ago. It's something that I actually went to Jamie Brown about a couple months ago in regards to changing and adding S to the south end.
Adding SO, south, not just.
Yes, yeah, South Ocean Breeze. So I spoke with Carmen about it yesterday. We do have a street change of name policy that was brought forward in 2018 by the previous commission. Through reading it intensely with Carmen, I'd like to add that agenda item back on. The community has screamed as loud as they can about the name change and the problems that they're having with packages, mail, checks being lost, and the frustration level is very high. I feel that the previous commission, when they did the name change, didn't think through. They should have not just had a north, it should have been north and south or just Ocean Breeze. The problem is, and I drove it again yesterday, is that some of the numbers are duplicated, which is why the mail's getting lost. So you might have on the north end, 622 North Ocean Breeze, and then there's 622 Ocean Breeze. So that's how the mail's getting lost, because there's no south. So with your permission and everyone's support, I'd like Carmen to put that back on the agenda and do that name change. The street policy name change says that it can be brought forth by a city commissioner. We don't have to do any strict due diligence. If it was a request by one or two parties that were affected, then there's an application process, there's a fee. I also had a lady who said, if you want me to, I'll get 400 signatures, to which I originally said to her, yeah, that shouldn't, that can help, but it can't hurt. But now that we've gone through the policy, I don't even think that that's a necessity. Carmen agreed with me yesterday. So with everyone's support, I'd like to add that. And just S to the front of Ocean Breeze.
No, not just S. SO, period. It's an abbreviation. My street was SL Street for a long time. That's so not.
I know, but it's already changed to Ocean Breeze.
No, I know, but just south, not just S.
I think that may be a postal thing that we don't necessarily have control, or we may want to be.
The post office has been very clear that they deliver.
I don't mean about adding south or S, but yes, I agree with that. But as far as whether we can choose whether it's SO period or S, I think.
I don't think so. I think it's just people, when they made the signs, just didn't think that one through. I mean, I can't imagine that they would care. But now I just want to say there's going to be some pushback from the folks at Ocean Breeze, because I've gotten some emails already about, we worked hard to get this and it's our identity and you shouldn't change our identity. So I agree with you, Sarah. I think we should do it. I just be prepared for some pushback from the south end.
Well, and that was something that I had spoken with the city manager about too. I agree with the change, but I know up here, I know it was citizen led, but they came to Eden Place, they came to Parrot Cove, they came to all the neighborhood meetings. They told us about the name change and the intention, and they let the community know ahead of time. So I felt like putting it on an agenda without reaching out to the people it's going to affect first was a mistake. But I do think we need to move forward on this. I just think we need to make sure that we notice everybody on that 5-block strip
Right.
of our intention, what it is, why we're doing it,
Good
and
idea.
that it will be on the agenda. And
That's a
just
great
to-
idea.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bill's my direct, yeah.
Why
I
is that?
hear
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, well, there's a party going on someplace.
There
No, I
goes.
agree with you completely, Kim. That's a really good idea.
Well, we were supposed to be reaching out to the affected parties 3 weeks ago when it was pulled off the agenda. I don't know where that's at. And if we look at all the streets in our city, right, it's north and south. We don't have, East Street and then Northeast Street, and I even have that problem. I was telling Carmen that sometimes my mail gets sent back and it says there is no Southeast Street. And I'm like, well, it's not Southeast, it's S space E. So, that's just our city's quirkiness, right?
Right.
That was the one thing. And the other thing, I kind of touched on it briefly with you guys last night, is there's a lot of legislation that's being passed down that is attacking our LGBTQ plus community, especially the youth. And some of the programs at Compass are in fear of losing funding. A lot of cities surrounding us have an LGBTQ liaison that is either staff or community driven. Somebody who keeps in touch with the legislation, is a voice for LGBTQ community, basically like a go-to. And I was really wondering if everybody on the dais feels the same way I do. And if we could assign somebody within our team to be the LGBTQ liaison. And when I say team, I mean city staff, to help navigate the waters for the affected community, to help us be on top of the legislation that's coming down and the negative laws that are affecting our youth. And I did have a brief conversation with Jamil yesterday, and she said she would be honored to take on that role. So I just don't know how the rest of the dais feels. I think that it's something that we need to start talking about. We are an LGBTQ community. We are the gayest city in Palm Beach County. We host the Pride Parade, and we have Compass as our neighbor. So, Jamil said she was all in for it, which is great because she's in HR as well.
Did you run that by Carmen before you talked to Jamil? Okay.
Of course.
Just trying to keep our lines, great.
Of
I
course.
think it's a great idea. When you told me yesterday about what they're doing with the hormone therapy, I flipped out. I could not even believe it.
It's so sad. And I'm we're already talking about the fact that we don't have the emergency, mental health awareness services that we need in our city. And now couple that with our youth that are going to need that instantly, between what they're facing in the schools and now taking hormone therapy away and basically taking control of children out of the hands of the parents. The parents now have nowhere to go in the entire state of Florida.
Right. Then you have the flip side, that parents that are all for banning books in the schools will say, well, it's our parent, we're protecting our children. No, I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
Ronaldo, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, a liaison, I think, is a great idea because we got to hear from them. But also, I'm seriously concerned about that. Another one that's really important is this reporting requirement, the forcing of teachers to tell parents, to out children. Huge safety concern.
Yeah. No, it's
I wish I had an easy answer and know how to address that, but anything we can do, we should definitely explore.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah, because I didn't know about the hormone one either until you told us. I've seen some of the other stuff and it's all bad coming there. And I think I totally agree with you. It's very important that we as a community be active, be verbal as a city government in letting people know we do not agree and we're here to provide whatever support we can, I guess, within the crazy constraints. But and maybe even it's worth thinking about. This is maybe a little out there, but I did see Glenn in the background in the city manager's office. Would we want to be a city that puts some legal challenges to some of these bills or sign on?
Well,
I don't know.
The one with the hormone therapy is not even a bill. It's a directive from the health department, which is scary. This was not a bill that DeSantis signed. This was just coupled behind the scenes. Why, they're making noise in Tallahassee. They were doing this over on this side. And It was with no legislation. It was just a directive to every single healthcare provider in the state of Florida. Anyone who administers services, who gets funding, you will lose your license and be fined if you do this.
Did
What
they get
send you
else
that-
can we do?
I'll send you guys the article. I mean, and the letter that was sent out. It's scary.
Please do.
It's concerning how systemic it is, because if you understand, like, in the effort it generally takes to get the Department of Health to take an action, even as something as simple as like to put up warning signs for cyanobacteria blooms and things that affect thousands of people at a time. So for them to make this directive, it's seriously concerning. And we do got to take our position and make it known that, you know, Lake Worth Beach is a safe space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can
Ooh,
we hear
that's a
from
great
Glenn
idea.
about this
What,
too?
Kim?
'Cause I would love to hear from Glenn as well. Because yes, we can challenge bills, but can we also challenge other things that have been implemented through our government? Any department in our government should be able to be challenged, whether it's in the form of a bill or not.
Right. You mean the health directive?
Right. So I'm curious to hear from Glenn if there's anything that we can do a little more than voice our support. As far as the challenge is concerned, this affects children in our community that we're responsible for advocating for and protecting. So I'm just curious about any of those avenues. I'm also curious about any kind of events that we would, you know, I don't know where the political and the government lines start to blur. If we, you know, we have Bryant Park, we have all these beautiful things, like, can we plan an event in support of our youth, of our community, of, you know, or is that too political for like a city government to be organizing?
Compass is actually working on something really big with the city of Lake Worth Beach. I know that Lauren and Julie are in talks about something. I don't know any of the details because they're working through some stuff. So I know that they're working on something to be done in the next week or two. So I'll keep everybody abreast of that as I hear from Julia Murphy. Or as Jamil hears from Julia Murphy.
So to answer some of your questions, yes, you can get involved in many of the different, challenges. I guess the biggest question to me is financially, if you're joining on to someone else's as the lead, whether it's the ACLU, Southern Poverty Law Center, whoever it is, then your financial exposure is very, very limited. Usually it's just your name that they want and your support. If you ever want to get to the point where the city is taking the lead on one of those lawsuits, you're looking at a lot of money usually. I mean, because the state's going to fight back, and you're probably going to quickly get into $100,000 in legal fees. Now, another option is if you want to do more than just sign on, which is not insignificant, because let's face it, they're reaching out to organizations, nonprofits, and local governments to sign on because it has an impact, right? You're a judge, you see 20 cities, 30 cities have signed on. A judge is still a human being that has an impact. Sometimes if they request a donation, that's something you could think about and say, okay, we're going to contribute $500, $5,000. Again, that's your budgeting balancing, and if you want to set aside a pot of money that says that we'll contribute on a case-by-case basis as you decide, but you could very easily, at $5,000 a pop, get to $100,000 with 20 cases. So I guess my suggestion would be, unless you really want to get into the deep end financially, is that you reach out to organizations and let them know that you're willing to be involved, and they could periodically start sending us, like if Legal Aid, for example, is bringing forth the challenge. We already support Legal Aid. We already have an arrangement with them. They're helping, with the landlord-tenant issue. If they get involved in litigation, and they'd want cities to sign on. So it really going to depend on whether those outside organizations are reaching out to us, or, and they often do, or if there's a particular interest that you have, reach out to them and say, contact the city attorney. And then, we'll work through the process of getting us signed on as a party.
I believe that PBC, HRC, Equality Florida, and Victory Fund are all looking at what they're going to do as far as fighting this legislation. And that's something that, obviously we can try to get an update from as they progress. But the last conversations, I had a meeting at Compass last week. The last conversation is that, they're getting the phone calls on how they want to proceed and what is best for everyone affected, because they want to, they want to tread on water, and not negatively affect these children anymore. But they know that something has to be done. And I like Kim's idea of, let's get behind the legislature. Let's show that, we're a city that stands behind 100% of any fight of these horrible rules.
Yeah, it is the scariest part about this. And I think we all have shown in the past that we're willing to be brave, is how vindictive our governor is.
Well, look at who he
But-
picked as our medical director.
I'm just saying, I know, like, he's
Yeah.
going after Disney. He's not afraid. He went after every school board that tried to protect their children in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yep.
And, but we have to speak up for our youth and our community. So
Disney should fund this fight. They got the money.
they have their hands full.
And
They're pissed off.
Kim brings up
But-
a really good point about the vindictiveness. We go to the legislature asking for funding for different projects. Obviously,
Right.
the more out front we are out on issues, the less likely we're going to receive anything. Now, the other side of the coin is, I don't think historically, Lake Worth has done great with this governor anyway. But whatever the legislative issue is, whether it's asking for funding or asking for input on the C-51 canal project or whatever it is, that does not mean you shouldn't be brave. I'm not saying that. I just want your bravery to realize, and Kim, as you already recognize, that this governor is very vindictive. I just actually spoke last week about the Disney versus DeSantis issue. And that's a great example. He's taking on the biggest corporation in the state. So
He's gonna
He
lose.
doesn't have time for us. He doesn't have time for small little Lake Worth Beach. So I
Oh.
think, I know.
his vindictiveness seems to know no bounds, no limits.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think we all want to do the right thing. So hopefully there are organizations like that, like when we signed on to the Southern Poverty Law Center's suit, and the things that we can show our support, and more than just a resolution, but actually support the organizations that are going out and doing the work.
And
Well,
that's exactly what I was saying about having the liaison. Like, it's great to write a
Right,
resolution,
we
but
agree.
to be enacting, like you said, I mean, I think this is amazing. Thank you guys for supporting both of these. This is something that's it's obviously it affects my personal home, but it's affecting our community, and
Yeah.
our youth. And when you talk
And
about
those are vulnerable kids. And so, we have to be brave to speak out for the most vulnerable people. And those are really very vulnerable people.
absolutely.
We've got gumption. Remember, we're the commission with gumption.
There you
So,
go.
okay, so thank you. I think let's move on now. Anybody else have anything that they want to talk about?
I do.
Okay, Kim?
So as we know, we're all very excited. The Gulfstream is going before HRPB tonight, I believe. And the last I heard, there's not an affected party filed. So I imagine there will not be a continuance, which means it's moving full steam ahead, and it's going to be coming to us soon. I've been talking to our city manager for a few months now, trying to get a handle on what is our final incentive package. And I'm still unclear. I've had some brief conversations with Joan to find out exactly what they're asking for from the CRA. A lot of, well, they haven't submitted an application yet. They haven't really asked for things yet. And I'm getting really nervous that, it's going to come before us, and all we have is like a year or plus old, very vague letter of understanding. As I mentioned last time, I've been reading up on my financial policies and for economic development and strategies. And it mentioned several times that our finance officer should be a key participant in deals like this. And in almost every section, it also mentions the possibility of hiring outside help to finalize and firm up all the details. And so I am going to be very uncomfortable if a $10+ million package comes to me, and the first time I've seen it is in the backup on an agenda item that's been released the same day to the public as it is to me, and I've had no input on that. So I'm hoping to get consensus to engage to finalize these negotiations with our finance department being a key role and to engage some outside professional help that has the skill set that our limited staff does not possess to help make sure the city's getting the best deal that it can, and we can move this project forward and we can all feel comfortable voting yes when it comes before us.
And I'd like to comment on that, I'm excited that it looks like the Gulfstream project is moving forward. I get the sense that there are a number of issues that are not resolved yet, some of them historic, some of them not historic. I certainly hope that the HRP board will be very conscientious in addressing those, because I think it's in the developer's best interest that these are addressed as soon as possible and resolved. I think sometimes the term is a third-party negotiator. My understanding is that you find somebody, I'm guessing from a law firm that has dealt with large developers and the balance between protecting taxpayer monies, because we have a fiduciary responsibility to protect taxpayer funds, and our vote is one of the ways we do that. I would agree. I would be very unhappy. I was unhappy last year when the letter of intent was placed in front of us, and initially it had no financial accounting. So what I would be asking for also is that we engage a third-party negotiator, and that we make sure that it's made publicly available. What is the ask that is being made of the city financially and the CRA, and where are those funds expected to come from, and that's made publicly available. So that's part of the discussion of what we're doing here.
I see Carmen's hand is up. Carmen, is your hand up for a reason?
Yes. I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute myself.
Oh.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to give an update. I appreciate the discussion about the incentive package. As I have been keeping, at least attempting to keep everyone up on the fast-moving project and the many dynamics surrounding the Gulfstream Hotel project. We have, as you know, engaged a firm into creating an economic impact analysis of the project. And so the team this week has been working with that firm on the draft document, making sure that the data is in line with the project and all the other elements to come out with a very well refined product and a tool for us to gauge on how to evaluate the incentive package with the benefits of the project for the city. And so we should have that, I would believe, within a week. And so it is falling in line with the process and the movement of this project as it's going in, being reviewed by the historic board and also before coming before the commission. So it's certainly our aim to have all the information available for you at the time of your review of this project. So what we have done so far, I spoke with Christy yesterday, our city attorney team, and they are drafting the development agreement package for us to have in a formal package to present to you, at least the template, and whatever that package is will be submitted to you all. So we have negotiated or been in contact with the developers over the last 2 months, working on those items that are listed in the LOI. And so we have eliminated some initial items that they had asked. And so we'll continue those discussions. I know there's some interest in engaging an attorney to negotiate for us. And certainly we're not opposed to that, but we wanted to make sure we had all our information. And one is the analysis first, because I'm sure the negotiator would prefer to have that information before they can start that process with the developer. So we're taking it one step at a time. We're making sure we have all the information in hand in order to supply an evaluator to determine if this project is economically beneficial to the city. And certainly that is our aim, and I think that's very important to determine. I don't know if William wanted to add in. He's been leading the efforts with the economic impact analysis process. And so I want to make sure I didn't leave something out. William, do you have anything to add in the process of the project coming before the commission and the information we'll be providing to them?
William's coming on board. I'll kind of piggyback a little bit on what Carmen's saying. So on our team, we've got myself, Christy, and Elizabeth are all been working on the Gulf Stream. As Carmen mentioned, Christy's been working with the developer's attorney. We also coordinate, of course, with the CRA and their attorney because they're an integral part of this. Elizabeth is, planning and zoning and historic preservation, and she will be at historic preservation tonight. And let me just remind all of you that there will be a quasi-judicial hearing in front of you all eventually on this. So be mindful of anything you say publicly.
Don't say anything publicly is, I think,
exactly.
the message.
And for example, I can't tell you not to go to HRPB tonight, but you could attend by Zoom and not have to be there in person. And if you do attend, I'd encourage you not to say anything. But back to the negotiations. So I agree 100% with Carmen that, our intent is to get you information early before you're not going to get something the day you have to make a decision. That's not the style. That's not the way it should be. So you'll have plenty of time to review, analyze, and discuss where we're going with this.
I think at a minimum, since you guys, I'm going to be honest, I'm very disappointed that I haven't been talked to. I don't know if the other commissioners have been talked to at all while these negotiations have been going on. We were talked to for a year ago. The market conditions have changed. The project has changed, and the LOU has expired. So I would have expected to have another chance to give input before these negotiations became near finalized. At the very minimum, I think we need to have an outside third party look at the package that you guys have decided on and give us.
Carmen, have you just, I don't think that's what
may I say? Yes, Commissioner Stokes, I certainly appreciate your concern and I share your concern. Please know, no official negotiation has taken place. What we have done based on the previous LOI that you mentioned has expired, we revisited that LOI and reached out as the new coming city manager. I reached out to the developers to revisit that LOI and go through and understand and get updated as to was the ask still relevant and was it still needed? And so we sift through that existing LOI and we had eliminated some things that were no longer needed. So what we're doing is starting from scratch and revisiting what was and determining what should be and what we need to present to you, at least in an initial package for your consideration. And so I thought it was unnecessary to bring that full package back when that package may not be relevant anymore. And so what I'm trying to get to is what is it that we need to bring to you? And once we refine that, it will be brought to you for discussion, consideration, and negotiation.
I think
so we're not at that place.
Wait, stop. Let's take one at a time. I guess, Kim, are you saying that you would, because as I hear Carmen, I hear you say that I think, the decisions have been made that we've not had any input in, that we may have had some input in. Is that what I'm hearing?
No decision has been made.
But you said you're eliminating things and putting, that aren't needed anymore
in that LOI. Because there was a list of things that were agreed upon by the commission with the developer. And so I wanted to revisit that since the LOI expired, we will now need to enter into a new agreement. So I need to know what, from the developer's standpoint,
what they
would now request at this time for the project. So that's all we've done. And so once we had that final determination of our discussions with the developers so that we can then bring that back to the commission to say, okay, this is the updated place we are with the developer concerning the incentives. And then you will be part of that process.
So you're gonna bring back to us what they're asking for,
Yes.
not what
yes,
we've
ma'am.
agreed to.
Absolutely.
Okay,
It'll
I
be an
see.
updated ask.
Do we have a
Okay.
timeline for that?
Yes, so like I said, we're engaged with a firm to provide an economic impact analysis. And so
Cool.
of course, that is accompanied with understanding and weighing in on the ask as well as the economic impact to the city. So we're trying to have that come to you in a package, both analysis, what the ask is from the developer, as well as what the project will bring to the city, so that you can have a full picture and holistic information to make a informed decision on that process.
I see Ronaldo's hand has been up for a minute.
We're trying to
Well,
avoid piecemeal. but
That's
Yeah,
right.
we don't wanna
That's
give you-
right.
We don't want to be.
I,
Involved.
It's hard to hear you, Glenn.
yeah,
But Ronaldo has a question.
All
well,
I'm
if
saying is
Glenn, yeah.
that we're trying to avoid piecemealing this. And until you get the whole picture of what the ask is, there's no point in saying, okay, this may be, and this may be, and this might be, and maybe that. And that's really kind of what we're sifting through, is getting past the what might be's to what's real. What's going to really be the ask in this day and age.
Right.
Kind of irrelevant of what the LOI was, other than it's a starting place to say, okay, here's what we were at, where are we at today? And once we get that, then obviously we're all going to meet with each of you and
Absolutely.
say, what's your thoughts on each of those components of the quote ask?
As we've done on other issues.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's going into the next step. And I think it highlights more. I'm going to voice my support in finding a negotiator, because as things change, as things develop, and we see what what they're asking for, I think bringing in somebody who has the experience and kind of the third party perspective of what would be best for the city, I think that would be really helpful. Like, for example, I'm going to point out, I myself personally have some, pretty serious concerns with what they're asking for on the base flood elevation. Because, like other towns, we're at 12 inches and there are neighboring towns at, 3 feet and so on. And I think it would be helpful to have a negotiator, have someone that can look at these kinds of risks and just make sure that we get a solid deal so that we can move ahead, and perhaps most importantly move ahead efficiently without any neighboring challenges or anything like that, because we really need to get this thing going. And I think negotiator, just like the financial report, would be a good tool to make sure that happens without more obstacles.
That's what's happening now, right, Carmen? That analysis is being looked at, what they're asking for. Carmen? Oh, she's muted.
I say yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
May I interrupt for just a minute, Mrs. William, to clarify something?
Sure.
The base flood elevation variance is required only for the historic hotel. It cannot be renovated without that variance, because the current hotel is 2 feet below the required flood elevation. So if we want the hotel restored, that variance has to be issued. It does not impact any of the new construction.
Thank you. Thank you. Chris, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I want to be very clear that I am not comfortable with how things have been progressing. I hear that there are discussions, but they're not negotiations, but they are negotiations, but they're only some things. I want to be very clear that I am asking for a third-party negotiator, that there's no ambiguity there. I'm asking for that, and I'm asking for that we move all of our negotiations with the developer to a third-party one, that the commission gets some input into choosing that third-party negotiator. I agree with what Commissioner Diaz and Commissioner Stokes have pointed out that we really need somebody who's experienced and has done this with other developers and is independent of our city, but just is looking out. It's a buyer's rep kind of situation. We have very substantial money that's on the table as taxpayer money that's involved in this. We should, on the draft version of the outside study, I would like that before it's finalized, when there's still in time to make some comments on it. That's typical fashion of doing it, is bring us the draft so we can look at it as the commission and say, yes, this looks like something I'd be comfortable with, but bring it at the draft stage so that we can look at it and give feedback back. Hey, I think you might need to look at this a little bit more, because I hear and I've in discussions with the city manager, it's come up before. Well, I'd like to make sure that we're looking at the benefits at the same time the costs. The benefit analysis has much more uncertainty to it. It's somebody's estimate of what this is going to do. There are lots of uncertainties with that. The costs are much less uncertain. We are agreeing to pay, as part of the LOI, XYZ things, or to give XY amount of we need to have at least an opportunity to look at the draft report. We need to have a third party negotiator.
And this also, when I was reading this, I realized how much I don't understand, because it talks about not just like
what is this,
but it also talks about page 6, I think it was, where was it? The performance standards. So they're promising, we're giving them this much money and they're promising us this. So how do we measure that? How do we monitor that? How do we protect ourselves? Like the LOI was like a very loose initial conversation starter that was very rushed, and there was a lot of information withheld. Like I wasn't told about what they're asking the CRA for simultaneously while they're coming to us. It was done kind of piecemeal in a sloppy way, I think. So I want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to move forward in a very comfortable way, that we can all say we didn't have somebody who's been working on revitalizing the Gulfstream Hotel for 10 years negotiate for us. We had an independent person come with their objective view, analyze the risks, the benefits, the cost, and work for us. And then we all, like I said, I want to vote yes on everything for this project. I want to move it forward. And I need to feel comfortable. And the way that the previous city manager handled us in this negotiation and the letter of intent makes me very uncomfortable. So I just want to get to a place where we can all feel confident, as I think Commissioner McVoy said, our fiduciary responsibility to our residents. We don't work for the developers. We work for the city of Lake Worth Beach, and making sure that we've got the best deal that we can, that we've put in all the protections to make sure that they deliver what they say that they're going to deliver, and things of that nature. So at the very minimum, like I said, I'd at least like an independent person to evaluate what's been talked about so far.
Can we
Chris,
get,
are your hands still up? Okay.
can we get consensus? I'm hearing at least 3 members of the commission that would like a third party negotiator along the lines of what the I can't remember the name of the organization, but financial advisors, what they recommend doing. And I'd like to get, find out if we have consensus to get that contract going and get that started ASAP.
I'm going to chime in for a minute. Yes, I agree to what everyone's saying. One thing I want us all to be mindful is that the community has spoken in volumes, from voting, from showing up at the ocean front when we had the open conversation in support of the Gulfstream. So I don't want the residents who do listen and pay attention to this to think that anyone on the dais is trying to kill the project or isn't in favor. As far as what measurable outcomes there are, job creation, tax creation, utility creation on a building that's been sitting vacant for nearly 20 years, if not longer. So I'm 100% in support of the Gulfstream. I too did not like the LOI the way it was shoved at us. One thing I will say is I'm a person of my word. So I backed that LOI because the city of Lake Worth Beach presented that LOI. We nearly, in my opinion, only represent the city of Lake Worth Beach. So I felt that it was strong back then for us to say, yes, if this is what the city continued to offer, and this is what it's going to take to get funding, I support that offer. I hear what we're saying about things being taken away and being added. I don't think that there's any package that should be presented to us on a last minute basis, like was before. The more details, the better. I think that the details are going to help those very few residents who are not in my backyard mentality see what the benefit is to the city of Lake Worth Beach. The benefit in any way is always going to outweigh what our investment is. Okay. And that's just my personal opinion.
I agree. And I mean, I think the third party is a great idea, you know.
Yeah, I'm in favor. I just don't want to spend $300,000 on a third party coming in to negotiate, but yet we're not going to give that $300,000 to an investor who's creating jobs. So I just want us to be mindful of, yes, we want a third party, but we want the public and the investors and the developer listening. This is not because we're trying to kill a project. It's because we came in at the last minute on, you know, when it came to the letter of intent and the investment that the city's making. And we just want to know that we're being as fiduciary responsible as we can and making sure that everybody, all the residents, the investors, everybody know that we're all in agreement. We're going to shake hands. We're going to be there when the shovels go in the ground, and we're going to celebrate when this hotel is finally opened. But yes, I'm in favor. I just don't want it to prolong the project.
Right.
So I'm hoping that this isn't going to be, oh, we hired a third party and we can't get a report from them from 9 months. That's not going to help.
So the time frame, I think, is the HRPB is tonight. Then they're going to have to go, and William, correct me if I'm wrong. Then they're going to have to go to the Planning and Zoning Board, correct?
No, things that happen in historic districts stay only with the Preservation Board. So there's only going to be one public hearing before the Historic Resource Preservation Board, unless by some chance it gets continued and the discussion goes on in May. We have been looking at the May 19th City Commission meeting, but it's a regular meeting. And one thing I wanted to talk to Carmen and Juan, and they were going to talk to you. Do you want a special meeting just for the Gulf Stream, which would, the first hearing could be maybe the May 24th, because we're also running up against a time crunch. Yeah. The project has to be evaluated within 180 days, and any delays by us don't shorten or stop that 180 days. So we were looking at having the first public hearing on the 24th. Then the second hearing would happen likely the second meeting in June, whichever that would be. That would be possibly the 21st of June, or it could be a separate special meeting in June.
Okay,
I have a
Chris, I was just going to say, I don't have a hand to put up, but I was just going to say that in that time frame, we don't want to mess up the time frame. Carmen, Glenn, William, in that time frame, can we get the analysis that you're looking at? I think we should have. This is an important enough event to warrant. I hate to say it, but to warrant a special meeting, because I know there's a lot. I mean, people are lining up tonight to make, you know, some comments and support, and a lot of them don't. You know, so when we have the facts, when we have the analysis, I don't know about everybody else, but I think you know, maybe we should have a special meeting, because otherwise it's going to be midnight.
That's fine on a special meeting. William, can you tell us when the 180-day clock starts? Did it start April 1st when they're submitted?
No, it started back in January with the date that we determined the application was complete, which I think was actually February 2nd. Now, as we give comments, there have been days that have taken, I mean, it's not consecutive. When we give comments back to an applicant and they have to respond to something that was erroneous or missing, the clock stops for a little while, but they have returned things back to us very, very quickly. And they have lost very few days since the first part of February. Let me give you the actual date when I think the clock started.
I'm extremely concerned that we have not had a third-party negotiator involved much earlier, because what I see happening, and I'm also concerned with what Glenn said, that this will be a quasi-judicial hearing. That is not what I heard from the other attorney that starts with an E, and I'm forgetting her name right now. Elizabeth. Yesterday, she said that this would not be a quasi-judicial I need clarification on that. If it's a quasi judicial, my understanding is, as we've had with other quasi judicials, we have very little room to change anything that HRPB has concluded. And what I'm feeling right now is we have a expired LOI. We have had estimates of the costs of that LOI that were very different from the costs that were presented when we first approved it. Those have not been made available to the public, those estimates. The LOI is changing. People are communicating with the developer, not through a third-party negotiator. We have not released what the costs are. We have not released where those monies are going to come from. And we will be rushed into a quasi-judicial hearing where we have very little say on it. No,
Are
I
those two
am not.
separate things though? Can we get clarification? So on that May 24th meeting, I imagine there would be two things coming to us: the approval of the project, which is that independent of the approval of the incentive package?
Yes.
Or is it all one?
There are more than two things you will be considering. The Preservation Board does have quasi-judicial hearing, and it's reviewing three requests: certificate of appropriateness for new construction, certificate of appropriateness for exterior renovation, and certificate of appropriateness for the addition. They also will be hearing the preliminary review of whether it qualifies for the already established 10-year ad valorem property tax freeze for restoration. They will be making a recommendation to you under an ordinance that affects the major site plan, the conditional land use, the development of significant impact, the sustainable bonus, and one other component, which comes to you. The certificates of appropriateness issued, even if the board approves them, are contingent upon the city commission approving the project. The incentive package, are trying to get all the documents together for the second reading. Because if the project does change at first reading for some fashion, maybe some footage gets cut out or whatever, the documents that will be coming to you, which is called the definitive agreements, would all be updated and corrected. So that hearing on the second hearing, there would be an ordinance governing the overall project. There is an economic incentive agreement for the utility revenue component. There is a economic incentive agreement relative to the streetscape improvement of $1 million. And there is an issue with the granting a perpetual access easement on the new alley being created. And there's one other item, and it's left me right now. So there are going to be like 4 or 5 items that you're going to hear. The project can be approved without any of the incentives. I mean, if the incentives went into the middle of the summer, it wouldn't be the end of the world. And the evaluative criteria for the project stand on their own. They have nothing to do with whether you decide to give them an incentive or not. And so the incentives, we do anticipate having the economic analysis from a third party that has done some work in Lake Worth Beach before by the end of next week. So you will have several weeks to look at it before it comes to you, and it will be included as backup. And if we do not have that document in a draft form, we're not going to schedule the hearing, because it's an imperative part of it, just so that people can have a better understanding of, even if the project meets all the criteria of our code, the general public, as you all have expressed, need to know what are the benefits and costs of bringing the project forward will be for the city. So the analysis, which includes an evaluative review of new revenues for utilities, projected tax revenue, sales tax, business licenses, inspection fees, the whole gamut of what affects the city's general fund.
Sounds pretty complete. I see a couple. Did you have another comment, Ronaldo or Chris? Your hands are still up.
Yeah, I did. Kind of to add to what Commissioner Malega said earlier, thank you for that, about being clear what this means to the public, and especially with what William just pointed out. I hope everyone, not just on this call, but everyone who's listening and paying attention, and the public out there, does understand that a negotiator, it's not a delay. I'm trying to think of like what's the best analogy to use here, and I think it's almost like bringing in a switch hitter in baseball. It's making sure that the changes that are being made, these negotiations are being made in a way that isn't going to subject us to a delay. It's a way of making sure that things are going efficiently. And maybe Glenn and Carmen can clarify, you know, the LOI from over a year ago, it's a starting point. Things have, I think about how much has changed, you know, and economics and everything from then, that they might have completely new asks. I mean, that's fine. And, you know, the LOI, the consideration from both sides hasn't been set in stone. So it was a starting point, and let's continue to work on that, and let's, you know, make it into an agreeable incentive package, or, you know, get the asks that they need updated. And, you know, the negotiator is the way to do that efficiently and quickly.
I agree. I have one other question about the CRA though, with William's timeline, because that was one of the things that I found frustrating around with the initial conversations, was when they asked us for $1 million, they didn't tell us that they were also going to the CRA and asking them for $1.8 million. So because we're two separate kind of bodies, I just want to make sure that when we vote on what we're willing and able to do and what makes sense for the city as a whole to do, that we also have an understanding of what the CRA plans on doing.
If I might try to answer that, Commissioner, after this hearing tonight, we're going to collaborate with Joan and her office to get the applicant before their board. Now that there is an identifiable project of what its breadth and size and impact would be, I don't believe the incentive package that was originally negotiated will be as large, or proposed to be as large, because the project is not as big. In addition, quite a number of items on the LOU and LOI have come off the list, and some of the values have come down from what was originally estimated because the project is actually smaller. As an example, there is no request for a transfer development right fee waiver because there are none involved. And so the number of items that will under your consideration are actually far fewer than were on the original list that was produced and approved by the previous commission, and then by you all acknowledging it back in May of last year. And the dollar values of some of them have come down. And then the projected revenues on many items, we've now been able to give a firm number because we know how many square feet of what type of use is in the project. So I think you'll be very pleased to see the depth and level of information to be provided, but the actual out-of-pocket dollar amounts from the city is actually going to be less.
Glad to hear it. Okay, and we're going to get all this information timely, right? I mean, I'm just asking for.
Well, as soon as we have an economic analysis that I can explain, and I'm pretending I'm a third grader, and I've provided a lot of information to them, we will provide the draft through Carmen to you.
Okay. Chris, do you have another question? I see your hand up, or is it still up, or just up again?
No, two things. One, I need clarification from Glenn. Which hearings will be quasi-judicial that come before the city commission and which won't? Because like I say, I'm getting different understanding on that.
You're
Hello?
muted. You're muted.
So sorry.
Sorry about that. As William said, there's two different paths. You've got your quasi-judicial, where you're doing your planning, zoning, land use issues. And then you've got your business hat, when you're the economic packages. As he said, they are completely separate. You know, this project can succeed or fail based on the pure land use development issues, and then separately consider the economic incentives. And as William said, what we're understanding is that those economic incentives asks are going to be less than they were. Again, this is very fluid. It's hard to say.
I don't think that answers the question. When we have a hearing, Glenn, is it going to be quasi-judicial? When they come before us, will it be quasi-judicial?
Yes, when it's dealing with the development issue, yes, not when it's dealing with the economic package.
Okay.
Well,
To add a little more clarity, there's an ordinance that governs in plan development, and it includes all the parts I mentioned. The discussion and approval process for that ordinance is a quasi-judicial hearing.
Right.
And that's the only piece that is.
Right. So all of the issues that relate to traffic flow to appearance of the building to historic aspects. That will be decided tonight at HRPB. And when it comes to us in a quasi-judicial, the only choice that the only influence that we as a commission will have, please correct me if I'm incorrect, but my understanding is all we can do is decide whether HRPB made their decision correctly based on the rules and stuff. None of the content of the decision is up to us at that point. Is that correct?
No.
Well, that's what.
The HRPB is making it a final decision on the exterior renovations, the addition, and the new construction, based on applying the Secretary of Interior standards, our LDRs, and our preservation guidelines. They are making a recommendation to you on all the components that govern the ordinance, which does involve how the site plan works, how the major site plan is set up, how the sustainable bonus application is done, how the development of significant impact is done. That they're providing a recommendation. You make the final decision that on all the parts of that ordinance piece. And at any point time, from one public hearing to the next, new evidence can be brought forward that maybe was not available.
That's absolutely 180 degrees different from what I've experienced at every other quasi-judicial hearing when we've been
That's
told.
different than an appeal. This isn't an appeal. I feel like we have rules for an
Right.
appeal where we're put in a box.
Exactly.
when it
You're
comes to the
absolutely
appeal.
right. This is not an
But
appeal.
this is a
It's not
plan
an appeal.
development or whatever. So it's different. We've added conditions.
Right.
Okay.
Christopher, when the only time we can't do that is when they come to us in appeal and the record has already been made and they're appealing a lower decision to us. So that rule
right.
does not apply.
All right, it just was concerning because I asked
Okay, well,
a question yesterday and got a different answer, but this is helpful. My other one is, are we clear that all five of us have said we are in favor of a third-party negotiator? Given the clock ticking, it seems to me we need to get this in place very quickly, if it's to any usefulness at all. Can we give clear direction to the city manager as to what our wishes are?
I think
I
we
think
have.
we all just did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did that already. Done.
And while we were at this meeting, I've already called Bruce Miller to ask him if he knows of anybody who's a third party who's done
And
evaluation
we've
like
already,
this.
been exploring and in discussions about that, anticipating the need.
Awesome. I have a 10 o'clock hard stop.
Yeah, we got 2 minutes left. What's up? What's
Oh,
on your
come on,
mind?
Kim, you can't hang out all day?
All day.
Listen, I would love these meetings to go on, but I think we've been pretty strict about the 1 hour just so that we don't,
We were all together Monday night, Tuesday night, tomorrow night.
I just
no,
want
not
to point
tomorrow
out,
night. Sarah, there is no budget meeting tomorrow night,
What?
correct? Carmen?
Correct.
I had it
No
on my
budget
calendar.
meeting. Our first budget meeting will be May 18th.
Okay,
correct.
my
That's
calendar,
correct.
so I was confused.
So we all had it on our calendar.
It
Yep.
was at one time and then the calendar was adjusted.
Okay.
So apologies if you had not.
Well, now I'm sad that I'm not going to see you all again tomorrow.
I'm telling you, right? I love it when I see everybody.
Saturday.
Saturday.
Felt like,
Okay,
it felt like
let's
we were on a roll.
Okay, let's take a couple extra minutes and talk about Saturday. My understanding is that we can attend on Saturday, but this is the L&M? No, this is the,
Yeah,
That's
L&M.
L&M.
that we really can't participate. Is that my understanding, Mr. Attorney? We're not private citizens participating. We are who we are.
Projects for charrette.
You can attend, of course. You got to be careful because if you start participating, there's that sunshine law risk that if two of you start talking about your vision, your ideas, what you agree to with, what you object with, you're having an issue. So
I wish we would have just advertised this as a meeting then. I don't know why we didn't do that so that we could do that.
Because it's a charrette for the public. This is not this is for the us. This is
Yeah,
for the
but
public to come in.
I understand that, but we don't have to vote at every meeting. We can, it would just give us the opportunity to talk.
You could have advertised it as a public meeting, but again, I think what you could have advertised as a public meeting, but I think what Commissioner Maliga is saying is that this is the public's opportunity to provide their
Oh,
thoughts.
yeah, of course, we
without-
understand that, but that it silences us. That's because we
Right.
are
Yeah.
also citizens.
We can't
but-
all be like, I love that idea. Like, we're not allowed to like say, I love that idea, or that idea is nuts, because
Which we
now
could if they advertised it.
Well, I'm not sure we
Right?
have enough time now to try to advertise
Right.
as a public.
Wednesday and it's Saturday and it's just saying.
I'm in
It'd be
favor.
very frustrating to go to this meeting and not be able to talk.
Yeah, if there's any possible way to notice it and do whatever else is required to make it a public meeting, I would be highly in favor of that too. And I,
But
the
we don't
public,
have to go, we don't
Like-
have to talk, but I just think it gives us the freedom to do that. Because people are gonna look at us and go, what do you think? Or they may, I don't know, they might say, we don't care. I don't know. Go away and leave us alone. But the public-
Commissioners, you're certainly going to be involved in this project and will have plenty of opportunities to give comment and thoughts about it, and even review the comments that are brought up at the charrette. So you will be involved in the project. So this certainly does not
no,
stifle
but
that.
the process of being there and participating with the public, and I agree with the mayor that it would be much better if we are allowed to be, informal discussions.
Just in case.
I agree.
Well, if you all really want to do that, and again, there's some perception then that, is that, no disrespect, but does that mean the commission's hijacking the public's meeting?
No, I
No.
don't think so. I think it just, I mean, listen, whatever works, but I just, I was
Okay,
going,
If you want to do that, we can go contact the clerk immediately and say, could you put a public notice out? Now, someone's gonna have to take minutes of that meeting then.
Yeah, and I know I'm not.
well, who's gonna be
Right.
there?
Right, will someone be able to take minutes of that meeting?
I have to check with staff. I have to see who's available on Saturday. I mean, this wasn't, of course,
Is it
scheduled.
who's running the meeting? Who's,
William,
Treasure Coast Regional Planning Commission is running the meeting through Dana Little. And keep in
what's that
mind,
noise in the background? I can't,
that the meeting the open door of it runs all day. I mean, it runs like 5 hours on Saturday, and people can drop in and view progress on Sunday and Monday. They'll be working next week. So I don't know how you do a public meeting that is open for days on end, for hours on end, to be perfectly honest.
I think it would be worthwhile picking a day and let people know that, the commission will be there on Saturday afternoon or morning or whatever it is, or Sunday or whatever. Pick some time. And my understanding is we don't do verbatim notes anymore. We video and then just very brief description. So the note taking is a little bit different than we might do otherwise. And
or
I'm
we
not
just go
sure
and
if, let's say
keep
if
our
only
mouths
one
shut.
of
Or we can just go and keep our mouths shut here and listen to what the people have to say. I mean, that's the other alternative. But I think that there should be a time where we have some say in it.
and as for a clarification from Glenn, if an individual of us go at any time and talk to the public, there's no problem with that, presumably,
If nobody else is there.
if no other commission member is there. Is that correct?
Glenn, is that true, Glenn? If no other commission.
that's what we were just trying to powwow about.
So if you're gonna go individually and not talk with each other at all, that's okay. But if you show up at any two or more of you show up at the same time, and the mayor makes a comment and the vice mayor makes a comment, you have a potential sunshine law issue. If you wanted to say, for example, Saturday from 3 to 5 is the city commission will be there, and that's your time to be there as a group. Or you agree among yourselves that Commissioner Diaz will be there 1 to 2, Commissioner Malega 2 to 3, so that you don't cross over each other. But if you're going to cross
I
over,
like your first idea better, that there be a window that is noticed as a public meeting. It can be limited 2 hours, 3 hours at most. I don't think any of us, want to hang out with each other that long, whether it's L&M or whatever. I mean, we got stuff to do, but I think it's useful to have at least one window where we could be there. Maybe not, maybe nobody will be interested. Maybe we won't say anything. I don't know, but to have the option, I think is worthwhile.
Because later in the afternoon, there'll be, or maybe, I don't know, the schedule Sunday, at some point when a lot of people have had their chance to talk, at least then we can hear what direction folks are going in.
Okay, well, I'm reading from the flyer, so you all know, we are open for a public workshop from 10 to 3 on Saturday. And the design space is open or being worked on from 9 a.m. till 10 p.m. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and from 9 to 6 on Wednesday. There is a in-progress presentation scheduled in the City Commission chambers for May 18th, which can very easily be made a public meeting. And all of you could come and give feedback and see what came out of the previous 5 days.
What
May
time is
18th
that?
is a-
May 18th?
It's a budget
Yes.
meeting. We have a budget meeting.
What time is that, William?
From 6 to 8. This has been advertised for 6 weeks now.
We have a budget meeting.
Well, that's also the night of our I don't know who did a budget meeting over top of this. We checked the calendar and there was nothing on the 18th. That's actually a day where we reserve it for the Preservation Board or the Historic Preservation Board or Planning Board's extra meeting. And so we
Okay.
scheduled this 6 weeks ago.
Okay, we'll refine the May 18th from the budget process standpoint. We don't want to change William's date, but we'll review that. So I'll get with the clerk's office and Savina and we'll iron that out.
And what's all of your thoughts then on William's suggestion that May 18th be the public conversation by the commission?
Yeah, it could
I
be a
think
workshop
that's
or
fine, but
something.
I would do something during the charrette. That's when people are likely to show up and be together. And I would just pick a 2 or 3 hour window on Saturday and have it noticed. You know, maybe maybe it won't get used, but at least it gives us the option to be there and talk with
Why
people.
don't we just do it for, if it's gonna stop at 3, why don't we just say 2 o'clock, the last hour, that we can come in and comment if we want.
So 2 to 3
Fine.
on Saturday?
Yeah.
Publicly notice the commission.
Oh, Kim left, okay. Ronaldo, Sarah, what's your
Okay.
thoughts?
So this Tuesday now, instead of it being open and us being there at the opening of the ceremony, you want us to be there at 2.
Well, that's what we're talking about, because then people have input and we can talk to people.
I think we could go for the, Sarah, that's a good point. I think we could go for the opening and simply say, you know,
And listen,
this is
yeah,
what it
we don't-
is. We
We don't
don't,
say anything. We can't say
Hey.
anything, right?
I think that it's important that we're
Well-
there for the opening to show solidarity, that we're all
Sure.
doing this together.
As long as we don't
Right.
say anything.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
hear you, Mayor. I just,
Yeah.
Or why
Yeah.
don't you simply do the public meeting from 10 to 12? You're going to be there at 10 anyway. Set aside a couple of hours.
I
and-
like that idea better. Because I think we're gonna have more people there at the opening to get it, they're gonna get there, get it done and move on
But
with
we
the
don't know,
weekend.
so we'll find out. We don't know. We can.
Yeah, I can commit 10 to 12.
Okay, I mean, I'm Ronaldo.
I mean, honestly, when I hear charrette, I kind of like what Glenn was saying earlier. It's an opportunity for the public to voice their concerns. And I would say that opening ceremony, I mean, if I was there, I would probably limit my comments to, you know, thank you for being here. This is
Right.
civic engagement. This is important. And then I would say after the fact, after we hear what everyone says and we
Right.
can take that information, then we can discuss and, you know, talk about what we heard. I think that would be really efficient. I'd be really
I think that-
concerned about.
I agree with
Yeah,
you.
I'd be-
Noah.
I'd
We
be
can
really
sit there and
concerned.
listen.
I know I'd be really concerned with notice requirements and workload on staff and, you know, this last minute change. But yeah, I mean, to review the comments that are going to be said, and I kind of suspect, you know, I kind of have an inkling of what some people might be saying or the majority might be saying. And, you know, one thing I wanted to point out is that as of yesterday, basically, it's official that according to realtor.com data, Florida is the least affordable state in all of the country. And so, you know, I suspect that's going to be a huge thing that is going to be discussed. And I hope we all consider that as we listen. And, you know, we should have, as Mayor Resch pointed out, a session, an opportunity, whatever it may be, its own meeting after we listen to everyone's comments to discuss the next
Right.
steps, because this project is obviously critical.
We can have
So-
our own little charrette.
Yeah.
based on what we've heard from the public. All right, so let's cap this up now. Are we going to, or are we not going to have any notice thing on Saturday? Or are we just going to listen and then delay until we get ours? Because it actually, in a way, that makes sense, because there's going to be days. I mean, it's not just Saturday. Saturday's, lots going to be coming in, hopefully, over the next few days. And if we go in there and we're alone, we can talk to them as well, right? As private citizens. So let's lighten up a little bit, Chris, and deal with it that way. But with the assurance that there will be a time for us to sit with the public input and mull it over and discuss it. And if that's our own, that's obviously, I think, a special meeting.
There will be several opportunities across the summer before anything is finalized in September or so, that you will have the opportunity to provide input, ask questions. We're not going to be bringing you a final draft of anything.
How can you? It's not right.
Okay, so where we are, I think then is we'll show up for the opening on Saturday at 10. We will not say anything with content. We will welcome people and, be there to support that. And then when we do have a meeting in the chambers, I'm guessing, we will take public comment at that one as well as talk, and we will see what
the citizens have from Sunday until, what is it, Wednesday, William? For 4 days of public.
Yes, ma'am. You can just drop in during those days.
Yeah, so we gotta get a chance to talk, and that's the thing. So there's so much opportunity for public comment for 4 or 5 days of that. One of the things that we're all very committed to is public comment, public input. So I
would encourage welcoming it at our meeting as well. I don't suspect that we'll get a ton, but I think we want to give people the opportunity to come. They'll comment, but the reality is people come when they figure they can come and get the commissioner's ears and so on. That influence them more to show up and comment. I think we should leave that up, but we can decide that later if you want.
That looks like a Saturday workshop to me.
Could be.
Okay, so we're going to show up on Saturday at 10 o'clock. We're going to say, welcome, welcome. We're going to sit and listen if we want to. We're not going to say anything substantive. We're not going to shake our head or not.
No wings.
Right notes. Good. And then, and we can drop in at any point during those 4 days as well and see what's going on. So, and it is a time for the public. So, all right. So we're not going to have all right. So do we all?
Can somebody make sure Kim knows this?
Yeah. So we're all on the same page? We're all on the same page? Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Carmen, are we going to ride over to lunch together? You're going to give me a ride to lunch?
You're right. Your ride awaits.
All right, great. I think I'm going to be voted as on the board of the Palm Beach County League of Cities today. So I'll bring it back.
Go represent us well, ma'am.
I do my best.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody. So see you Saturday.
Thank you. Make sure somebody's going to make sure, Carmen, you're going to make sure Kim knows.
She just said she would.
Yes,
Okay.
Commissioner.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.